Well, good morning and welcome to Coffee with the Pastor. We've been looking at Genesis. We have been looking through Genesis 1 through 11. And today I'm going to wrap that section up and we're going to move to a new section and begin in Genesis chapter 12. And we'll be studying the life of Abraham. And there's a smooth transition that happens in this section. So I'm going to try and wrap up that area and kind of tie some things together that we've been studying about since Noah, and then transition right into Abraham. And Abraham, very famous, very, very powerful. There are three religions that trace back to Abraham. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all trace their roots right back to Abraham. So significant study to happen. But let me kind of tie things up that's going to happen. All right. We've had Noah. From Adam to Noah, there were 10 generations. And after Noah, we realize that drunken Noah had cursed his son Ham. And the curse was that Ham's son Canaan, his descendants were going to serve the descendants of Shem, one of his other sons. And so they began to populate the earth. But then one of Ham's grandsons decides that he wants to get everybody living together, and probably does it by force somewhat, in the Tower of Babel. And remember, the word Babel means Babylon. And so he wants to make their name great. He wants to make a name for themselves, build a great city, make themselves great. And God comes down and says, "This is not what I asked you to do. I want you to scatter." And so he confuses their language and they scatter. Well, the descendants of Canaan head over and they settle in what is now modern day Israel, the promised land as we know it in the Bible. And so he settles there. And then out of this area, Babylon, he calls Abraham's his family, his father goes with him for a while, Terah, and they go and they are going to end up, Abraham's going to end up in Canaan. In fact, I've got a map I can put on for you. I'll kind of show you the route of that. If you look down in the right hand corner, lower corner, you'll see Ur. That's where they start. That's where Abraham's father Terah starts them out, and they're in Ur. And you'll see it's right there at Babylon. Babylon's in Iraq. Ur, they have found, it's more like in Yemen, but we're very close there. It's in the same area. I find it interesting that the people of Tower of Babel wanted to build themselves a great name, and they wanted to become great. God's going to call someone out of that region, and we'll make them great. Make Abraham great. But if you'll look at the red line on there, they're going to travel, and they're going to move from Ur. They have literally dug up Ur, and I mentioned this earlier. They've actually found high-rise buildings, everything else in their excavations of Ur. It would have been a very, for their day, a very modern city, a very secular city there. But they're called to leave, and so Abraham's father, Terah, leaves and he goes up to Haran. It's up at the top of your map, top middle. That would be in southeast Turkey today, modern day. And from Haran, Abraham is going to go down into the promised land, or into Israel, and you'll see how he can come all the way down. If you follow the red line and the markers, he comes down all the way through. and comes down to Shechem and settles there, and that's where the patriarchs will settle. And you can see how it's tied together, because in order for the prophecy or the curse, whichever one you want to talk about, that Ham gave, remember, Noah didn't curse Ham, but he cursed his son or his grandson, Canaan. And his curse was going to be that Canaan would serve the descendants, his descendants would serve the descendants of Shem. And Shem, if you read it, I'm not going to read it all, but in chapter 11, we see the line of Shem. And there's 10 generations down from Noah to Abraham. I find that kind of interesting. 10 generations from Adam to Noah, 10 generations from Noah to Abraham. And we're going to start seeing the worship of God, of the one true God. No idol worship's done like that with Abraham. And so, let me just read a few verses. This is from chapter 11, beginning with verse 31. Terah took his son Abram, which will later become Abraham, his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, the wife of his son Abram. And together they set out from Ur of the Chaldees to go to Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there. Terah lived 205 years, and he died in Haran. So Abraham starts out with his family, takes his father, takes his nephew, obviously his wife Sarah, and they go, but they stop on the way to Canaan. And that's where his father dies. We'll pick the story up tomorrow with chapter 12, and we'll look at Abraham, who's called the father of our faith, and we're going to study about that. And I'll just encourage you today to live by faith. That's what Abraham did, and we'll see that beginning tomorrow. And that's the only way to really live, is to live by faith. So I appreciate you tuning in today, and like I say, tomorrow we'll look at the beginnings of Abraham's ministry, and we'll be on him for a while. God's blessings to you. Have a great day.